All right, let's go to the next one here. Table-driven. Table-driven is very similar to the sketch-driven, except instead of drawing a sketch with your points listing out where you want an instance, you're given an XY coordinates. Now, what's nice about this is you can later save this out and reuse that table again. The trick is you have to have a coordinate system created before you do a table-driven pattern. So let's go ahead and do that. I've got a plate, I believe it is. Where is it? Table-driven. You notice I have a file here called an SLDPTAB. So that's a SOLIDWORKS table file that's already been created. And that's what we're going to use to create our table-driven pattern. Now, it will not let me use my origin. It needs a coordinate system for a table-driven pattern. So I'm going to go and tell it I want a coordinate system. And I'm just going to place it right on the origin, right like so, and let it do the default. So I'm just placing my coordinate system right on top of my origin and going with that. And now I'm going to tell it I want to do a table-driven pattern. Now you can read from a file. Since I already have a file created, that's what I'm going to do. Or you can just go down here and start typing it in your XY coordinates. We'll browse for that table-driven pattern, and you'll notice it puts in all my XY coordinates for me. You could add more if you needed to. You can save the table out. So if you saved it, it would save over top of it. You could do a save as and give it a new name. You have to give it a coordinate system as its start point. So there's my coordinate system, all right, because it needs to know where to start the 0, 0 for the XY. And then you have your features, bodies, or faces you want to pattern. We're going to go with a feature of this cut extrude. You can see there it is. Now remember when we did sketch driven, I said you could specify where you wanted to place it. In this case, if we wanted it to not be placed in the center of each one, you could once again do a selected point and go through and choose which point you wanted to line it up with. In this case, we'll leave it at the centroid and say OK. Now here comes a chance, or this is a good time to introduce a face-driven pattern, or excuse me, a patterning a face. We're going to do this with a linear pattern. Let's say I want to pattern just this instance right here, linearly this direction. If you go get your linear pattern and you give it your edge, make sure your direction's going in there, you'll notice if you click Features to Pattern, it patterns, let's say we only want 2 of these, it patterns the entire pattern. You see that? And that's not what we want. Even if you clear out the Features to Pattern and then go choose just this one, it assumes you want the entire pattern. So if you want to pattern either an imported geometry, surface geometry, or you want to pattern one single instance from a previous pattern, you're going to need to use Faces to Pattern. Click that box and then go choose the faces that make up the shape of what you want to pattern. In this case, we want to pattern this. Maybe we'll just do 40. There we go. And you can see it is patterning just that particular instance. There you go. So that's how you would do a face to pattern. You just go through and choose the faces you want that make up that instance, and it will pattern that. So there's table driven and how to use faces.